It took us nearly a week. Luckily, we managed to scrape down on the time. We had already had experience putting it together this time around, so it went a bit quicker. But we finally got the suit back together, which I was fairly relieved about. Thankfully, at least to our knowledge, the Black Dog Syndicate hadn't struck again, since the night of my fight with Alice and her daughters. It had been nearly a week, and I had collected some extra heavy metal. Surprisingly, the amount that I could produce had actually gone up some, only by about a quarter of the total amount that I could already produce per day. But still, it was better than nothing. Apparently, all the extra mass that I was putting on through my workouts was having some extra benefits. And according to Nylea, the amount of telekinetic force that I was able to produce was going up as well, as the amount of weight that I could lift was gradually increasing, just the same as my muscle mass, as I kept my workout schedule. No point in slouching off now, I thought. But now, it was finally time to get back to some superhero work. To be honest, it was relieving to get back to it. I sort of felt, lacking when I wasn't out there. But boy, now that I was back, I was out there. My first week back on the streets went better than I could have possibly imagined it. I was busting criminals left and right, and getting plenty of news coverage to boot. Everybody hurrahing the return of the Heavy Metal Knight. And I left the criminals that I busted with some messages to pass along to the Black Dog Syndicate. Primarily, that they're only running two things, Jack and shit, and that they get New Star City over my dead body, which was reported promptly on the news. To add into everything, we actually made some extra modifications to the new suit. For one, I found that I could actually bounce light around inside of the suit fairly effectively. So now I could actually create a small panel of liquid steel, attach it to the suit with a fine thread, and transmit images from my phone to the slate of liquid steel that I created. And with a little bit of know-how, I managed to work it so that I could interact with my phone through the slate. It was actually pretty wicked. I felt all high-tech. I mean, I know it's alien powers, but still. The help of the heavy metal spirit also proved to be massively beneficial. I had been stuck simply having to run around the city, finding interesting ways to transport myself, like creating a skateboard or rollerblades, jumping from rooftop to rooftop, which, quite frankly, was sort of exhausting. But with the heavy metal spirit along, I could fly. And boy, did that just take the cake on basically everything. It was such a trip, flying over the entire city, and I was getting very used to it. It was one of the most prominent things featured on the news. People were raving about how awesome it looked. Meanwhile, I was raving to myself about how awesome it felt, swooping past skyscrapers. I mean, it takes a bit of getting used to with the heights and all. But after you get used to it, I couldn't imagine traveling any other way. Screw traffic. I can fly. And with it, I could get around the city with ease. I only wish that I could have done this sooner. I found myself swooping down on crimes all over the city. Another one of the helpful advantages that Ned helped me work into the armor were the Crime Stopper advantages. Basically, throughout New Star City, there were a bunch of people who were basically crime watchers. It's sort of their hobby. They monitor CB devices, police communications, and things like that, and then communicate and interact, talking about the crimes, events, locations, criminal investigations, all sorts of stuff. and they have lots of online forums, blogs, and things like that. So, while I was out on patrol, Ned kind of functioned like my eyes in the sky. And we set up my home computer so that Ned could communicate with me through my cell phone, instantly feeding me alerts of crimes in progress all throughout the city. Other people do the watching, I pick up the information, and show up Johnny on the spot to stop the crimes. It was exceptionally effective. He's basically like my all-seeing eye. In case you're wondering what that is, it's a superhero riff. Basically, there's this superhero from the comic books, Cyberman. Well, Cyberman is sort of your high-tech superhero, running around fighting crime with, well, basically a bunch of high-tech gadgets that he builds himself out of throwaway materials. But Cyberman doesn't do it alone. He has somebody backing him up, a figure known as the All-Seeing Eye, basically a friend of his who monitors an advanced computer system that watches over the city, feeding him intel on everything that he needs to know, helping him fight crime. Ned loved the idea, especially since it gave him something to do in terms of helping the whole superhero gambit. He felt right at home slipping into that chair, and felt like $1 million every time he sent me information on a crime in progress, and watched me bust it just a few seconds after it happened. Once people start uploading their videos to YouTube, he constantly had an eye out for it. I was just on my regular patrols for the day, swooping around the city, when I got a call from Ned. "Yo, Kev, I got one for you. This one's a hot ticket. Guaranteed action." "Awesome, Ned. What do you got?" I replied as I swooped around another of New Star City's skyscrapers. It looks like somewhere downtown, 5th and Main. It appears that some cops are in pursuit. Some people pulled off a heist, and they are now on the run. It's a car chase, bro.
Awesome. I haven't been in a car chase yet.
Come on, Kev. Like there's going to be a car chase anymore after you get there.
Hey, don't take this away from me, Ned. It'll be fun while it lasts,
I said as I swooped in that direction, heading for 5th and Main. As I swooped in, curving across one of the buildings, an apartment complex as I curved onto Main, there it was, a high-speed pursuit. A bunch of jerk-offs in a stolen car with a lot of stolen goods and a lot of firearms as they swerved down the street rapidly, and I could hear gunshots echoing from the car as they fired back at the squad cars, giving chase behind them.
"Yeah, that's a bit too dangerous,"
I said as I swooped in, my wings giving powerful flaps, propelling me forward ahead of the car. As with a bit of a whirl and a reverse flap of the wings, I swooped down, landing on the hood as they drove forward, my wings suddenly turning into chains, reaching out and latching me to the car as I stared in through the front windshield as they tore down the street.
"Okay, guys, I think your fun's about over,"
I said, staring in at them. 4 guys loaded into a car with guns.
"You get one chance. Stop the car and surrender peacefully,"
I shouted in, as the guy in the front seat lifted a shotgun and began blasting, firing shots as they bounced off of my armor, shattering the front windshield. More and more shots began to pierce it, ringing out as pieces of glass shattered everywhere, none of them having even the slightest effect on me. As I reached down, grabbing the shattered windshield and ripping it free from the car, throwing it to the side.
"That is not giving up peacefully."
"Screw you, man!" the people in the vehicle exclaimed as they tried to reload their weapons.
I don't think so,"
I said as a few of the chains holding me to the car released, reaching inside, beginning to grasp all of the weapons, one after another, pulling them free and wrapping them up, tearing them out of the hands of the criminals.
"Sorry, but the joyride's over, guys,"
I said as I raised my arm, liquid metal gathering around it, latching into the places that I had slotted for the armor, for attachments, as I formed a drill on my arm, burying it into the engine of the car, tearing through the steel, as sparks, smoke, and fire flew out of the engine as it grinded to a halt. I quickly wrapped a chain around the top of the car, spinning it rapidly, chainsawing it through the top of the car before grabbing it and ripping it off, quickly grabbing everybody out of the vehicle and jumping in the distance as the car burst into flames. And I began one by one tying all the guys up, beginning to put zip ties on their hands. I carried a generous supply for me, as I didn't want to leave liquid steel lying around. It was a valuable resource after all. After zip tying all the guys and checking them for weapons, the police emerged on the scene, pulling up beside me, as I was just finishing checking the guys over. "Oh, thanks. Sorry for having to have you handle this for us, but thanks all the same," the cops exclaimed as they approached. "I gotta be honest, we're kinda getting used to having you around, Heavy Metal Knight. I wish all the superpowered people were a bit more like you." "Oh, don't worry about it, guys. I'm sure there'll be plenty more superpowered positive people in the future." "Yo, screw you, man," one of the criminals who I had zip-tied said from the ground. "Frickin' armor jockey. Yeah, well, better than being a no-shit criminal who's about to spend some time behind bars for a whole bunch of crime," I said as I placed all of the firearms down beside the police officers, removing the chains and liquid metal around them. Hey, Heavy Metal, we're having a police benefit next month. Do you think you could show up? I mean, it'd be great for getting sponsorship. I mean, these criminals keep getting bigger guns, and we need new armor." Well, I'll think about it, guys. If it'll help. And you're not going to arrest me, of course. I suppose I could make an appearance," I said, looking over to them. "Oh, that'd be great," they exclaimed as they began going about the process of putting regular handcuffs on the criminals and escorting them to the squad car. At which point, I heard sort of a popping sound as there was a flash of light right beside me as a void doorway seemed to open up, apparating into space. And before I could say or do anything, a colossal fist flew out of it, punching me so hard that I went flying across the street, impacting into a car, cratering it as the metal warped around me. And as I tried to shake some sense back into my head, I looked up to find a very familiar large figure exiting that doorway in space. Tall, black, rippling muscles, terrible tribal tattoos, dreadlocked hair, and a shiny new addition. Some sort of helmet that seemed to cover his head, allowing only the dreadlocks in the back to poke out. "We've been waiting for you, metalhead. You think this was gonna be over? I got some major payback for you, boy. You think you beat me with a fucking cheap shot? I'm about to teach you a lesson your ass is never gonna forget," he exclaimed as he stomped his way out of the portal, the cops beginning to draw their guns. "No!" I shouted out. "Just run!" I exclaimed before that massive figure lashed out at them, a single arm stroke getting them both, slamming them through the glass window of a nearby business. I have no idea whether that hit would kill them or not, but they are most definitely not in a good state as I grip my teeth from behind my helmet. "You bastard! They wouldn't have been able to hurt you. Who gives a shit? Fucking goody two-shoes. I'm about to tear you apart. And that little liquid metal trick of yours ain't gonna fucking work no more. You see, we all had these special masks made just for your ass. Let's see how well you fare when you can't drown me in that shit no more, heavy metal reject." he exclaimed. And just like that, the Black Dog Syndicate had started making their next move. And that move was to try to take me out.